Okay. Good enough. Okay, so where we left off, they're about to get out of there. The plague of the firstborns has happened, and Pharaoh has summoned them in the middle of the night to tell them to leave. Pharaoh was not able to protect Egypt from the hand of Israel's God. Pharaoh was supposed to do that. Their whole religious system in Egypt was based on the idea that Pharaoh was God. It was basically the manifestation of their gods, and that it was his job and his duty to protect Egypt from the other nations and keep the forces of chaos that were outside their borders. And this Pharaoh was not able to do that. This Pharaoh's image in front of his people has been totally shattered. And he was not able to keep the God of the Hebrews from utterly humiliating and humbling him and ruining the land of Egypt. Now, Egypt will recover eventually. This is not going to be the end of Egypt. Egypt will recover and will become a major power again someday. But they are going to go through a rough stretch in their own. The Israelites are going to leave, so we're not going to be tracking Egypt's history after they leave. In fact, we're not going to hear from Egypt again in the pages of the Old Testament for quite some time, not until near the end of the time of the Judges. It's probably during that time that Egypt is going to be occupied by a foreign power. So the Egyptians who enslaved the Hebrews for 100 plus years are now going to be enslaved. Okay, so we finished through chapter 12, which is when the flight, the plague of the firstborn has happened. Pharaoh has told them to leave. Not only has he given them permission to leave, he's ordered them, get out of here. Just get out of here. Go away. And the people of Egypt, who are the survivors, are telling them, go. If you stay here any longer, we're all going to die. So at the end of verse 12, it says, all the Israelites, and then they've gotten the ritual of the Passover, the instructions of the Passover given to them. The first real instructions given by God to the Israelites about how they're to conduct themselves in their worship of Him. We read in Genesis over and over about people acting in ways that the later Israelites will do, such as offering sacrifices or designating between clean and unclean animals. But we never got any indication of how those people at that time knew how to do any of that. All the way back when Cain and Abel are offering sacrifices, it doesn't tell us how they knew to do that. It doesn't say whether or not God told them to do that or whatever. Moses or Noah was told to get a handful of clean animals from, instead of just getting the 2x2s like he did for everything else. For the clean animals, he was supposed to get 7, but there's no indication of how he knew which animals were clean. God says that Abraham followed all of his statutes, which we never got any indication that Abraham was even given any of God's statutes. So I don't know. The patriarchs of Genesis are written as if they already knew all the stuff that God would end up telling the Hebrews on Mount Sinai. So I don't know. But at any rate, the first actual instructions, official formal instructions that we have a record of the Israelites getting from God was this section back here about what to do for the Passover, to prepare for the Passover. Anyway, moving on. This is the end, last couple of verses of chapter 12. Just to help set up the next section. All the Israelites did just what the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron. And on that very day, and this would be about April 25th, 1446 BC, the Lord brought the Israelites out of Egypt by their divisions. The Lord said to Moses, consecrate to me now I don't know when he's telling them this. Okay, it says the Lord said to Moses. One of the things that we're going to find as we go throughout the rest of the Old Testament, and into the New as well, there are lots and lots and lots of sections of text that start with the Lord said to somebody. And this section of the scripture is going to be Moses. There's going to be lots and lots and lots of sections of text that start with saying the Lord said to Moses. Later on, it's going to be the Lord said to Isaiah, the word of the Lord came to Isaiah, whoever the prophet is at the time. And I have no idea how to fit all these into a chronological sequence. In fact, I think in many cases it's impossible to do so. We're going to see that again in the Gospels, especially in the book of Luke, where just a bunch of stories of Jesus's dealings with people and interactions and activities are just going to be kind of like thrown in there, and it's going to be basically impossible to sort them out and to say, okay, here's the order in which these things happened. To some degree we can do that, but there's going to be, to some degree we cannot. There's always going to be uncertainty with some of those things about when they happen and how they fit into the sequence of events as they actually unfolded in linear history. And that's, we're going to have to accept. Now, we didn't really have that problem in Genesis. Genesis was pretty straightforward. Remember, at the time Genesis is being written and compiled into a written document, the events have already taken place hundreds of years earlier, and nobody that was there at the time is still around. So it's all being compiled by people generations later. And we're going to have a lot of stuff here from this point forward where there's going to be sayings or things or just sections of text. In this case, it's going to be just a bunch of instructions from the Lord to Moses that are going to be kind of written down and included, and it's going to be really hard to tell in what order these things happened. And we're just going to have to accept that. Writing things down in the specific order in which they happened was not particularly important to these Israelites. It wasn't particularly important to the ancient writers in general. It wasn't. It wasn't. If you read, that's just something. There always was some idea of time. Okay, it's like it's not like they had no understanding or no concern about this, but it wasn't as important to them as it is to us today. It just wasn't. It just simply wasn't. The Lord said to Moses, "Consecrate to me every firstborn male. The first offspring of every womb among the Israelites belongs to me, whether man or animal." Then Moses said to the people, "Commemorate this day, the day you came out of Egypt." So I'm guessing he's telling this to them as they're about ready to go. "Out of the land of slavery, because the Lord brought you out of it with a mighty hand. Eat nothing containing yeast. Today, in the month of Abib, A-B-I-B, you are leaving. When the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Hivites, and Jebusites, the land he swore to your forefathers to give you." Remember all those times we heard him say that back in Genesis. And I said that the people who are hearing this for the first time, as Moses reads this out loud, those are the people specifically he's talking to. "A land flowing with milk and honey. You are to observe this ceremony in this month. For 7 days," we already read these instructions given to Moses earlier, now we're reading about him giving them to the people. "For 7 days eat bread made without yeast, and on the 7th day hold a festival to the Lord. Eat unleavened bread during those 7 days. Nothing with yeast in it is to be seen among you, nor shall any yeast be seen anywhere within your borders. On that day tell your son, 'I do this because of what the Lord did for me when I came out of Egypt.' This observance will be for you like a sign on your hand and a reminder on your forehead, that the law of the Lord is to be on your lips. For the Lord brought you out of Egypt." Now, they would eventually literally take this literally and write instructions on pieces of paper or whatever and tie them to their hands and put them on little caps on their heads. I don't know if Moses means that way exactly right here. But they would eventually take this instruction very, very literally. "For the Lord brought you out of Egypt with his mighty hand. You must keep this ordinance at the appointed time, year after year. As the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites and gives it to you, as he promised on oath to you and your forefathers." How many times have they mentioned that now? I haven't been keeping track. But there's I think some value in going through and trying to track just how many times this promise is mentioned. Over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And we're only in Exodus 13. And we've already heard it mentioned probably dozens of times at this point. You are to give over to the Lord the first offspring of every womb. All the firstborn males of your livestock belong to the Lord. Redeem with a lamb every firstborn donkey, but if you do not redeem it, break its neck. Redeem every firstborn among your sons. In days to come, when your son asks you, "What does this mean?" say to him, "With a mighty hand," well, it's got to be the right hand. The right hand is the mighty hand. "With a mighty hand the Lord brought us out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. When Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let us go, the Lord killed every firstborn in Egypt, both man and animal. This is why I sacrifice to the Lord the first male offspring of every womb, and redeem each of my firstborn sons. And it will be like a sign on your hand and a symbol on your forehead that the Lord brought us out of Egypt with his mighty hand." His hand is upraised, ready to strike, ready to take action. When Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them on the road to the Philistine country, though that was shorter. For God said, if they face war, they might change their minds and return to Egypt. So God led the people around by the desert road toward the Red Sea. In the footnotes down here it says the Sea of Reeds, Yam Suf, that is the Sea of Reeds. The Israelites went up out of Egypt armed for battle. So somehow or another, the Israelites have weapons. I don't know if that was part of the plunder at the sea when they left the towns. It didn't say specifically that weapons were part of the plunder. We talked about it. Said that there were, gold and silver and things like that. Clothing. I'm looking down here at chapter 12, verse 35. It talks about silver and gold and clothing. Way back before Moses even came here, and God was telling him a preview of what he was going to do. It talks about having all your women, all your wives, ask their neighbors for silver and gold and clothing. So it doesn't say anything about weapons. It doesn't say anything about them taking weapons. But somehow they had weapons. Somehow they were armed for battle. Now the Israelites. Okay, so I am not a scholar when it comes to mapping out the Israelites' route out of Egypt. Okay, there's been a lot of effort over the years trying to determine exactly how they got out of Egypt, and different people will tell you different things. And I've never been in that region of the world. Remember, this was 3,500 years ago, so I'm not even sure how much the topography and geography of that region is the same. Okay, it's like 3,500 years is a long time. So I don't know how much the climate has changed, how much the environment has changed, whether this sea is even still there or it's dried up or other seas have formed. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to pretend that I know. I have read a number of different theories and speculations about the exact route they took out of Egypt. One way or another, they didn't take the most direct way out of Egypt. The most direct road out of Egypt, which would have been up the coast, basically, they did not go that way. They went a more roundabout, circuitous way through the peninsula, the Sinai Peninsula, to get out of Egypt, and they did not go the most direct way. Apparently, there were several Egyptian garrisons stationed along that way, and if the Israelites had gone out that way, they might have faced opposition and had to fight to get through. And this is not a warfaring people, as we're going to find out in the next few chapters. It says here they're armed, they're going out armed for battle, but this is not a warfaring people. Way back at the beginning of Exodus, 80 years ago, before Moses was even born, the Pharaoh at that time, went ahead with the enslavement of the Hebrews because he was afraid that they would side with their enemies if they ever got invaded or attacked from the outside. And that was an overstated fear. They would not have done that. This was not a people that was ready to take up arms against Egypt. But somehow they're going out of Egypt armed for battle. But when it comes time for battle, their hearts are going to melt. They're not going to want to fight. So anyway, God is leading them through the Sinai Peninsula somehow in some roundabout, circuitous fashion to avoid the Egyptian garrisons that line the road on the most direct way out of the country. But again, I'm not the one who's going to tell you exactly how they made. I've read a number of different theories. Any of them are plausible to me. I don't know. We're talking about 3,500 years ago. I don't know how much the environment has changed. How many of those springs? It says that they're going to stop at springs along the way. How many of those springs are still there? How can we even determine that? I mean, I don't know. I'm not qualified to be able to tell you that. Moses took the bones of Joseph with him. Remember that? All goes all back to the end of Genesis. Because Joseph had made the sons of Israel swear an oath. He had said, God will surely come to your aid, and then you must carry my bones up with you from this place. Now, Joseph would have been embalmed and would have gone through the Egyptian burial process. His organs probably would have been in jars, and his body would have been mummified. But they still carried his remains up out of his little tomb. Joseph, from what I can tell, would have had his own little tomb. I think we found even the tomb of Joseph in Egypt. Of course, the smart people won't identify it as such, but the evidence strongly matches. And so we even found, I think, the room where Joseph would have been buried, with a statue of Joseph, with the ruins of a statue of Joseph left in there. So he had made them. Now, apparently his brothers didn't. His 11 brothers apparently did not make the rest of the Israelites at the time swear an oath like this, and their bones may still be in Egypt to this day. This compound where they think Joseph's body or tomb would have been has a family burial site that may have the bones of the brothers of Joseph in them. And I guess they had gotten comfortable in Egypt and did not see a need for their bones to be carried out of Egypt and brought into the Holy Land. Jacob wasn't buried in Egypt either. He died in Egypt, and they embalmed him, but then they carried him up to the land of Canaan and buried him in the same cave as his father's, his wife, and his mother's, his grandmother's. So, but Joseph was kept in Egypt for a period of time until the Israelites left. But apparently his brothers were not carried out with them. They apparently stayed there. After leaving Succoth, they camped at Etham on the edge of the desert. And again, I'm not going to try to tell you where this may have been. Someone smarter than me can do that. By day, the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way. And by night, in a pillar of fire to give them light, so they could travel by day or night. Neither the pillar of cloud by day nor the pillar of fire by night left its place in front of the people. I don't know how much they were all moving in a uniformed herd. There may have been a lot of staggering to their, you might have had like the advanced guard that goes out first, and then the people are coming along as they go. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the stragglers might be a day behind. I'm not sure. I really don't know. I don't know how they would have done it. I don't think they would have all been moving 100% in a uniform group. I think there would have been an advanced unit that was probably going out first, and then maybe the slower ones would have been coming up from behind. But I don't really know. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites to turn back and encamp near Pi-Hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea. They are to encamp by the sea, directly opposite Baal-Zephon. Pharaoh will think, the Israelites are wandering around the land in confusion, hemmed in by the desert. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them. But I will gain glory for myself through Pharaoh and all his army, and the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord." So the Israelites did this. Okay, so the stage is set for a major confrontation here. I think it's time for another video.